Low motivation rarely feels dramatic. It feels ordinary. Half-finished plans, ideas that once felt exciting, now sitting quietly in the background. You still care. That's the confusing part. You care about your goals. You imagine the future. You want to move forward, but your actions feel disconnected from your intentions. And slowly, the gap between what you mean to do and what you actually do begins shaping how you see yourself. You hesitate before starting because you remember the last time you stopped. You delay decisions because you don't trust your consistency. Even small tasks feel heavier because each one carries a quiet thought, what if I lose momentum again? Psychology describes this as a motivation-confidence loop. When effort repeatedly fails to create a satisfying sense of progress, the brain reduces future effort to avoid emotional cost. Not because you're lazy, but because your mind is trying to protect you from disappointment. And once this loop begins, motivation doesn't disappear suddenly. It fades gradually, like a dimmer switch turning down a little each day. But if motivation fades through a process, it can return through a process too. You are not unmotivated. You are responding. Your brain is constantly evaluating, is this effort worth the energy? If the answer feels uncertain, your drive lowers to conserve mental resources. This is not a flaw, it's an adaptation. Motivation drops when your system senses unclear rewards, overwhelm, or emotional friction. Low motivation is not a character problem, it's feedback, a signal that something about the process doesn't feel safe, clear, or meaningful enough. And when you start seeing motivation as feedback instead of failure, a different question emerges. What exactly is it responding to? Motivation works less like a switch and more like a regulation system. Think of it like body temperature. Your mind is constantly trying to keep effort within a comfortable range. Too much pressure, and motivation drops to protect you. Too little stimulation, and it drops to conserve energy. Internally, your brain is predicting whether an action will produce a reward worth the effort. A simple way to understand this is through a mental model. Motivation equals meaning multiplied by progress multiplied by ease. If meaning feels low, effort feels pointless. If progress feels invisible, effort feels endless. If the task feels too difficult, effort feels unsafe. When any one of these approaches zero, motivation falls with it. So the experience of feeling unmotivated is often your brain predicting a low emotional return on your effort, which means motivation doesn't rise because you force it. It rises when the prediction changes. Instead of trying to push yourself harder, you shape the conditions that naturally increase motivation. The first shift is shrinking the entry point. Start with a version of the task that feels almost too easy. Small beginnings reduce perceived risk, which quiets the brain's threat detection. Completion sends a progress signal, releasing dopamine and increasing the likelihood of continuing. A person who commits to 5 minutes of movement instead of an hour often ends up doing more because starting felt safe. And even when they don't, they reinforce the identity of someone who begins. The second shift is making progress visible. The brain needs evidence that effort leads somewhere. Tracking effort rather than outcomes creates that evidence. A simple log of minutes practiced, pages studied, or attempts made gives the mind proof that movement is happening. When progress becomes visible, your brain updates its prediction about the value of effort. The third shift is reducing emotional friction. Before starting, notice what feels heavy. Confusion, too many choices, unclear expectations. Remove one small obstacle. Open only one document. choose only one task, define only the next step. When a task feels contained, it feels safer, and safety increases willingness to engage. The fourth shift is reconnecting effort to meaning. Motivation strengthens when effort feels personally relevant. Instead of focusing on the task itself, connect it to what it enables. Saving money becomes creating future freedom. Learning a skill becomes expanding who you can become. Meaning activates the brain's valuation system, increasing your willingness to invest energy. When these shifts combine, motivation stops feeling mysterious. You lower the barrier to start. You make progress visible. You reduce friction. You reconnect meaning. And a pattern forms. Effort leads to small wins. Small wins build confidence. Confidence increases future effort. This becomes a motivation flywheel. At first, it turns slowly, almost reluctantly. But once it gains rhythm, momentum begins to sustain itself. Consistency stops feeling like discipline. It begins to feel like alignment between your energy and your actions. Staying motivated every day doesn't mean feeling driven every morning. It means understanding that motivation is a response to how meaningful, safe, and achievable your effort feels right now. Some days will still feel slow. Some mornings will still feel heavy. But instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" you can ask, "What does my system need to move one step forward?" Motivation isn't a spark you either have or don't. It's a process you can influence. And the real shift happens when you stop waiting to feel ready and start trusting that small action can create the readiness. You don't need to feel motivated to begin. Often, beginning is what creates the motivation. And maybe the goal is not becoming someone who feels motivated every single day, but becoming someone who knows how to begin, even on the days when motivation feels quiet.